So tell us
Well,
quickly, how was your entry into the US? Because we've been hearing horror stories. Well, not horror stories, but I've been hearing that first of all, traffic is down, people aren't going to the US, and American border agents are a little bit, I don't know, cautious about Canadians. So how was your experience? No problem crossing?
okay, so for everyone who doesn't know, I'm in Texas right now. I'm on a visit. I'm not permanently in Texas, at least not yet anyway. Yeah, so crossing the border was actually the easiest thing ever. But here's the difference. I have a US passport. So when I went to YVR, so I went to YVR to fly out to Dallas Fort Worth, um, it was more hassle getting to the airport than it was getting through the security at the airport, let me tell you. So, you have to go through the security at the airport. They check your bags or whatever, like you do on any international flight. I do this often to go to Japan, so it was not really any different than usual. But there's a specific one for U.S. customs and immigration and all that. You go through, and then I'd go to the counter, and I said, here's my passport. Oh, where do you live? I said, well, in Canada. So briefly had to explain that. And what are you going for? Well, I'm going to visit friends. That's it. And there was no other questions asked. There, off you go. Enjoy your flight. That was it. It was not difficult at all.
There you go.
And
Awesome.
the flight was not like fully booked. So that might be a thing. It
No,
was
I think that's the thing. They've said that WestJet and Air Canada have canceled a few flights or removed them from their schedule because it's noticeable. People are staying home, not going to the US. So
So is this okay? So is this a real thing that Canadians are actually not going to the US because of their hate on for what's going on? Or is
yep,
this because they can't afford to travel?
a bit of both. I'm sure it gives you an excuse, but I mean, I'll tell you anecdotally. I had a friend of the family dropped over that came by the house this afternoon, and she talked at length about how she had gone and did her groceries this afternoon, and she was going through and avoiding buying American products. She's an Albertan, a conservative, but she felt compelled to try and shop more Canadian or Mexican. So it's having an impact. And before we get into what's happening totally in Canada, because you missed out a little on the local politics, what's what's Canadian politics from the American perspective? What have you heard? Like, are Texans watching the politics in Canada, or is it like nobody cares?
So this is the thing we've been getting into. So we just finished getting enough film gear to go out and do this. So we're going to get into it a bit more. But everywhere we've been going, we've been asking Americans their opinion on what's happening in the state of affairs and what are their experience with Canadians overall. I tweeted one out on Twitter. Um, Perhaps I should pull this up. In the meantime, I'll look for that. But in the meantime, so talking to a lot of people, most people don't really know what's happening in Canada. Like it's really not at the top of their mind. And when you ask them, it's not like they're not being mean about it. Like they're really not being mean about it. They're just like, I'm sorry, I just don't really know much about what's going on. I'm not sure. I think I heard
It's
something in the news, but like not
it's
a
not making the
huge.
news, right? I mean, they're watching CNN or Fox or CBS or whatever TV stations and podcasts they're listening to, and they're more preoccupied with their football games and their basketball games and anything else than our
Well, so,
Canadian politics.
so here's an interesting aspect because we've been asking them about what they think about the politics of what's going on, and some people are in tune. Some people knew about it, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm not super keen on antagonizing the Canadians." That's what we hear a bunch of. But we also asking like, what do you think of the Canadian sentiment that Americans are not or Canadians are defined by the fact that they're not American. Bring that idea up to people. Bring these ideas, and then like, have you ever visited Canada? What are your thoughts on how Canadians treat Americans? And this is one story that really kind of hit me, and I felt a lot about this because this young lady went through a similar experience that I've gone through in my life when people found out that I'm American in Canada and how it's like a bunch of different treatment. So she had this to say after telling this whole story, but she said, you know, I said that I was visiting the great state of Texas. I've never seen such hospitality. Their sentiment of how Canadians, however, has diminished over the years. This lovely bartender shared her story spending her time in Kingston, Ontario. She told me that people were nice to her up until the point of realizing that she's American. Things would get worse for her when she said that they'd learned that she was from Texas. Why has it become this? Why has this become a norm in Canada? This is what she said.
Trailer Park Boys is really good, but y'all are really rude.
Like she really just straight up said Canadians are very rude when it comes down to it. At the end of the day, she was treated quite terribly just for the knowledge of, and this is before any of this tariff stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
This is before any of that, and it's just become the image of people who have visited Canada and have had relations with Canadian people. That's not good because every time I we mention that we're from Canada and we're here, everybody's like, "Great, we love Canadian, like love you guys. It's awesome." It's fantastic. It's not reciprocal. This is what I'm saying. Like it's this animosity is not reciprocal. But when people have been to Canada, they kind of it sullies their experience. I hate to say that.
Yeah, that's probably you're describing a bit of a new phenomenon because I worked in Texas a lot. I mean, I worked for American Oil Company, so I had to go to Texas. I agree. When I'd go to Texas, they loved us. I loved them. But I was going to Houston, and I think in Houston they knew more about Alberta than maybe Fort Worth or places like that because we
Well,
had
I'll
such a
find
strong.
out because we're
Yeah,
doing a tour. We're going to be in Houston next week. We're going to be in Austin. We're going there tomorrow. So like this is an ongoing thing. We're going to be finding out.
yeah. But I've seen online some interesting dynamics of people. Remember in the good old days, well, maybe you don't remember, but in the good old days when I traveled, we were proud of having a Canadian flag on our coveralls at work, and we'd put it on our
Mm.
bags and stuff like that. And Americans used to emulate us. Americans that would go to Europe would get a bum rap, so they'd pretend to be Canadians. And now lately, apparently, being a Canadian is sort of frowned upon, and we're pretending to be Americans. It's weird. Like we just live in interesting times, man. Crazy, crazy times.
It is crazy times, but I gotta reiterate,
Yeah.
like it is awesome down here. I have zero complaints of what it's like down here. The people are so hospitable, very friendly. And I'm talking like very friendly. Like we would have conversations at these restaurants with the different staff that are at these. Like we went to a fried chicken place. There incidentally was like the theme of Atlas Shrugged. They had a whole room that was a theme of that. I don't even know how to explain this. Let me share this
Wow.
on the screen because this is really interesting. So we went to this place and they had like memorabilia of Atlas Shrugged on the wall. Like it was something else. There's the John Galt line. They had the great fried chicken. It was fantastic and it was quite reasonably priced. The John Galt room. It was yeah, really interesting.
Sometimes it could be because of the owner had a liking for that book or that movie or something like that. Maybe he's a big fan. Maybe he studied it in school or whatever. Who knows, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
speaking of prices, you're drinking beer, right? You're drinking. I noticed you got those stubbies. You're drinking. How much is like sadden me? How much is a 6 pack of beer in Texas?
You know what? A six pack of these at the 7-Eleven, which you don't have to go to the you don't have to go to the government to buy
Yeah,
your
yeah.
beer. Um, it is kind of highway robbery for the prices because I think this was like almost $10 for a six
Oh my
pack.
god, $10 for a 6 pack. Yeah, well, because it was a 7-Eleven. If you had gone to
Because that's
Walmart, you'd
highway
probably get it
robbery,
for
right?
three. Yeah, you'd get it for $3.99 at Walmart
I,
for a
I
six
saw
pack.
I saw on the catalog, I think it was Walmart, was like you could get a 30 pack of these for $20.
Jesus. Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna
yeah.
go prove this. We're gonna go there. We're gonna take photos of all the different
Well, you
prices
need
and
to find. Remember, we talked about it a few weeks ago. You need to find that 99 pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon if they have one of those. I don't know how you bring that across the plane, but the 99 pack. That's hilarious.
yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
I'll be able to smuggle that one back home. But
Well, you didn't miss much. So, we're in week 2 of the political campaign, and it's one of the most boring campaigns I remember in recent history.
yeah, and to
Like,
me it feels like is what campaign?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
we're not hearing much about it.
No.
So I
The-
had communications with the Conservatives because I kept bugging them, come on the show, come on the show, come on the show. When are you gonna do stuff? I kept hearing when the writ drops,
yeah.
then you'll see showtime. I've sent a few of them, literally text saying showtime and nothing back.
No.
And nobody's appearing on podcasts, nobody's appearing on any of this stuff. And I'm hearing about conservative members getting thrown under the bus uh
Yeah. Well.
in a bunch of ridings.
We'll go through that. So
Hmm.
so it's been a quiet campaign. I think it's weird because there's almost three participants in the campaign. There's Carney, there's Poiliev, and there's Trump. Like like Trump is part of the campaign, like it or not. And Jagmeet Singh, completely irrelevant at this point. He's trying to be relevant. There's nothing there. Nobody cares about Max Bernier. Nobody cares about the
No.
Green or the Bloc. And the parties are all feeling each other out, and it's absolutely obvious that the liberals are hiding Carney. Like they don't want him speaking. We've talked about this. I mean, every time he opens his mouth, he becomes less and less likable. And then they're finding all this stuff about, they're digging now. We're finding out about his holdings, his holdings in Brookfield and how Brookfield had holdings in the Bahamas and stuff like that. So
Well, in China, we're hearing about in a $250 million investment or loan that they took from a CCP owned company, like
yeah, yeah.
as if that's not a conflict of interest. This is insane.
Yeah, and then people went and found the building in the Bahamas that they were claiming was their office. Like the joke was like they're on the fifth floor of a 3-story building. Like that's how that's how shady the whole deals were, right? So
Oh, another just replacing one crook with another. Is that what they're trying to do to us here?
completely. So that's going on, and while that's going on, the highlight from a promise point of view and anything concrete for platforms like Carney said we're going to build 500, we're going to jack up the home construction to 500,000 homes a year, right? It's at 300, man. That's pie in the sky. That'll never
We cannot beat 230,000 homes in a year with the workers that we have.
exactly.
We have a retiring workforce which means it's going to be diminishing returns as the years move on. We're going to have less and less tradesmen unless we ramp things up and get more people in the trades. We have this open door immigration that's not providing us with any new tradespeople. There are no new tradespeople coming in. And you said pie in the sky? Like that is really pie in the sky when you're just throwing numbers out there and as if you could throw money at it and it'll fix the logistics problem. I
Yeah,
have no.
Yeah, on the flip side, I said, just shut down immigration for 2 years and let the current 200,000 homes a year catch up, and you'd be way more effective than trying to do what they're doing. So, and then because of these kinds of weird promises, we're seeing the authoritarian Carney come out. The central banker, central control, central
authority. Yeah.
Right. So he announced yesterday we're going to create a Canada Home Building Corporation Inc. or something like that. Like it's like, yeah, no, we don't need the government building homes. Like get the hell out.
Yeah, no, we want neighborhoods, not ghettos, Marty. Like this is what they're gonna make. Like this is gonna be like what we see in I've rolled past some of these neighborhoods here in the Fort Worth area, what they call Section 8 housing. Is that what we want? Is that what we want? We want to create a bunch of ghettos where you're going to have lots of people, filing. This is terrible. The government getting involved in the business of making houses is just the wrong approach.
And I give an unpopular example of that. If you want to see what government housing looks like in Canada, go visit any native reserve and you'll see it. Like the government can't build anything, can't build the water infrastructure, whatever. Anyway, so that was so far this week. That's Carney's big promise. Ooh, we're going to build 500,000 homes. Like, let's see if something sticks. And then Pierre.
Well, tell me about this, because there's another thing happening with the Liberals. There was a conservative candidate apparently that was threatened by a liberal candidate to call the Chinese
Oh,
authorities, put a bounty on somebody's head. Tell me about
we'll
it.
come to that in a minute. Let's just finish with the promises. So Carney
Okay,
has
I'll
that.
remind you of that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I
Oh
want
no,
to hear
it's on
about
my
it.
notes. We're not going away. So and then Poilievre had a couple of good promises. Poilievre talked about a pretty decent tax break. Maybe he had talked about that last week, but he talked about a pretty decent tax break. Lowering the rate for the middle tax bracket from 15% to 12.75%, and then increasing the minimum personal exemption for seniors. And then he had a couple of good things like that.
Who heard it, Marty?
Eh?
Tell me this. Who actually heard this? Because I keep seeing him showing up on CBC. I keep seeing him showing up on just the usual outlets for a speech and a couple of questions.
You got to go look for the promises. So, okay. So far, no big promises. Nobody's talked budget. Not a single politician has talked about budgets, how they're going to pay for this. Just a couple of simple promises. Back to the story. So, yeah, one of the big stories this week. The guy's name is he's a liberal candidate. He's a current liberal MP. His name is Paul Chang. And he made a bad joke. He made a bad joke at one of his fundraisers where he talked about his opponent, a conservative, and apparently they're not apparently for real. There's a bounty on this conservative MP, but he's a Canadian citizen with ties to China, and the Chinese want him, and so there's a bounty. Anyways, this liberal guy's at his fundraiser made a big joke while it was being recorded. He's like, hey, if you want to make easy money, just turn in whatever Larry over there to the Chinese authorities and you'll get $1 million. You can't say that.
Holy, no, you can't
that's enticing
say that.
mischief. That's the definition of enticing mischief. So, and mischief, which gets you what?
Like that goes way overboard to like, oh, why don't you? You could say that any which way. If a conservative did that, how would they respond to that? Like, let's just be honest.
It goes way overboard. So then people were calling for him, and Carney, the Liberals have fired other candidates for way less than that, right? We still don't know why they fired Ruby or disqualified her. We still don't know why they
We know
disqualified.
why, Marty. What are you talking about?
We don't know the official reason, right? There's no official reason. And so people were calling for this guy's head, telling Carney, you need to, and you know what Carney says? It was a teachable moment, similar to Trudeau, right? Like I experienced it differently. So poor Paul,
right,
or whatever. It was a teachable moment. So I slapped him on the wrist, and he can stay on as a candidate. But the next morning, yesterday, Paul, this guy, he quit. He resigned as a candidate. So bad move for Carney, because Carney would have had a huge win, because it would have made Carney look serious about Chinese interference and other interferences. But he went with a teachable moment, kept him on board, and the guy ultimately quit. And I think they're going to lose that seat. So that happened. Now on the flip side, there has the closest thing to a bozo eruption, and it's not a bozo eruption. Poilievre made a comment about women delaying having kids because they can't afford it. And then he used the term, their biological time clock is ticking. So the Liberals tried to make that out of something, right? Like, you can't, he's interfering in women's reproductive rights, blah, blah, blah. Like, and again, that backfired on him so much, because all of the stories from the internet's forever, folks, right? So suddenly stories from the CBC stories on ticking time or on biological time clock started coming out. Videos of MPs, Liberal MPs, proudly displaying their bracelet for their period bracelets and in support of women. And it's like,
that's just obnoxious. It's obnoxious. Yeah, but why not mention women's biological clock? I mean, this has been a real issue. It's a real issue because
it's 100% legit.
It totally is. So
Totally
many
is.
people are waiting way too long to have children, and then it's a real issue because some women are finding out that they waited too long and then they can't have children.
Well,
Like that's
and
awful.
what and the issue is, why are they waiting?
It's
Because
an
they can't
economic
afford.
issue.
It's economic issues. They don't have a place to live. They're living in an apartment. They don't have an extra bedroom for their kid. Their job's at stake. They don't. They can't afford groceries. Absolutely. So, yeah, that's the kind of silly week we've had. Now, on the interesting side, has been the events that they've held, right? So Carney held one small held a rally in Manitoba that had maybe, I don't know, 500 people. Then he
Mhm.
held a small rally at a pub in Ontario. I think it was Georgetown is the name of Georgetown, Georgeville, something like that. He
Okay.
he had a rally at a pub. About 40 people showed up, and then the owners of the pub the next day immediately issued an apology because because they're like, we're just a business, we're not endorsing the liberals, we're just, we're happy to offer a room to any group that wants to meet. I guess they must have taken a lot of shit for that, because it was in a conservative part of Ontario, rural Ontario, and people didn't take a liking to that. But on the flip side, if you saw the rallies that Pierre's having. Pierre had one today in Kingston, Ontario, and some
Yeah.
people are saying there was 8,000 people there. He's renting out
8,000.
8,000. He's renting out airport hangars and filling them. I mean, I'm tempted to make the drive to Penticton on Saturday, because that's the closest he's come to me. He's going to
Mhm.
Penticton, same thing. He's renting this humongous hangar, and he's pulling like these 5 to 8,000 people rallies. So don't believe the polls, folks. Do not believe the polls.
So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. I think if everybody can, ignores the polls, they'll do that at their peril. I think the conservatives will do that at their peril. There is a large constituent of voters that were going to vote conservative because Justin Trudeau was the leader of the Liberal Party. And there are a lot of ridings across Canada, especially across Ontario and
Quebec.
Quebec and the Maritimes, where the MPs were saying, they were hearing from their constituents saying, "We love you, man. We like you. You're our Liberal MP, but Justin Trudeau is the leader, and if he's still your leader, we're going to vote against him." Because this is the way the parliamentary system works.
Yep.
If
Yep.
you want to vote for the prime minister, you have to vote against maybe even your local interests, because you maybe like the guy in your riding, but if you want to get rid of the prime minister, you'll have to vote the other way. So because they were successful at ousting Trudeau, it's brought a lot of liberals back into the fold. This is the reality of the situation. And I think a lot of people, like, this can't be ignored.
No, it's
This
not. It's not being ignored. I'm just mentioning it, that it's not as bad as what the polls would make you believe. I mean, if you believe
Mhm.
purely the polls right now, you'd think that nobody's going to vote for Poilievre, but he's pulling these rallies with 8,000 people. That's impressive. But
Yeah,
you're
there's a
right. I
massive
mean,
groundswell towards Pierre Poilievre, and I'm not
yeah,
denying that either, of course.
and the other thing that is bringing Canadians back to the Liberals is Donald Trump, right? I mean, time and time again, people are walking on the streets and interviewing Canadians, and yeah, they're saying, well, I think Carney's the better man to fight Trump. Now, I think after Trump's announcements at 4 this afternoon, I think we're entering into a new phase of the election, of the campaign, because Trump changed everything, changed the dynamics today. They're not nothing, but the tariffs are not as bad as they were led to believe, as they were made out to be at the beginning. I mean, the USMCA, the free trade agreement that we have with the Americans, it's real, and Trump has to honor that. And he basically said that today, that it's due for renegotiation in 2026, and he's very limited to the number of tariffs he can impose on Canada until it's renegotiated.
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's what I'm hearing. So I'm hearing that, after all of this tough talk from Canadian politicians, they're they're saying all this tough stuff to sound good to Canadians, and then at the very last minute, they're all pulling back and saying, no, we'll pull the tariffs. We understand what Donald Trump is doing, even though they said they're confused about what Donald Trump is doing for all this time. And now they're saying, oh no, we're not confused. Donald Trump's not confused, and we're gonna lower our tariffs. Here's Doug Ford on the news saying just that. Let me pop this on here. So here's Doug Ford beacon off again and talking about dropping the tariffs.
And discuss this because it's just going to hurt American jobs. I can't stress it enough. And again, he believes he's supporting Americans. He said he was going to create jobs, create wealth, reduce inflation. It's worked the total opposite. Inflation.
But do you think it's fair that you have tariffs on a whole number of products?
That's right. And we'd be willing to take those off tomorrow if he took all the tariffs off. We are not the problem, Andrew. Do you know the problem is? China's the problem. And he's taking a blind eye to China as they continue to build their critical mineral mass.
He's turning a blind eye to China, says Doug Ford. I cannot believe the words that I'm hearing out of this guy's mouth when it's been the case. Like Canadians who are, smart enough to see past the rhetoric and the politics and all that stuff have been saying, why are you putting tariffs on a country that's saying they're putting tariffs on you so that you'll take the tariffs away? And then ignore China, and at the last minute they just flip, and this is insane to me. It's crazy.
Well, and Trump, yes, and I've said this, every politician is better off just being quiet right now, because if you try and guess what Trump's going to say next, he's going to make you look like an idiot, right?
He just made them look like idiots.
He just made Ford look like an idiot, and he's doing it to a whole bunch of people. So yeah, it's been, in that sense, it's been an interesting week. But I think it's a bit of a game changer now, because Carney.
But he's not just making Ford look like it. This is the thing. So Ford and Carney and even Pierre Poilievre have been saying all this stuff in the media, and the media has been banging this drum that Donald Trump is a lunatic and he keeps changing his mind and all of this stuff, which is not the case. And it's making Canadians look bad. It's making because Canadians are coming forward with the same way of thinking, right? So this is what the news told me. I'm telling you what the news told me. And you speak to anybody outside of this Canadian news bubble, Canadians sound like they're idiotic. At
the highest level. I mean, Carney came out of his meeting today. Apparently, so Carney didn't campaign today. He said, "I can't campaign. This is too important. I have to have a special meeting with my cabinet." He came out of his meeting today and he said, his exact words were something along the lines of, "Trump just fundamentally changed the way of the world." I'm like, wow. If you believe Trump just changed the way of the world and you're gonna just like that in 30 seconds, man, you didn't think about this. Digest what Trump did and pronounce on what Trump did tomorrow, but not now.
But
Carney
just
said
last Friday, Marty.
Yeah.
Just last, Mark Carney got on the world stage and said our relationship with America is fundamentally over. It's over, he said. How do you reel back from that one?
He's swinging hard, man. He's flip-flopping so, but they're all flip-flopping, right? I'll be critical of Pierre as well. I mean, Pierre's flip-flopping.
He's flip-flopping.
They're all flip-flopping because Trump bad, Trump good, Trump bad, Trump good. I'm afraid to pronounce on anything. I mean, I'm looking at the tariffs right now going, okay, actually, my suggestion is just do nothing and see what happens. Do nothing. Don't even do nothing.
See, my thing is stick to your principles. And the reason why I asked you this earlier, Marty, is I asked well, who watched it? Who saw it? What Pierre Poilievre was saying is because I'm really thoroughly getting annoyed with this fact that Pierre is not going on podcasts. And I'm not saying he has to come on our podcast. I would love for him to come and chat with us like this. But I'm saying get out on okay, so what is it? Full Send podcast? Why isn't he getting his guys to go reach out to the guys that do Full Send podcast? That's an American channel that has a large Canadian audience. Why? Because the main guy who makes it, is a Canadian. He's in California, but he's known as this cool Canadian guy, and he's hip with the new generation of people. Those are the people you want to convince. Who's Pierre Poilievre going out and speaking to? He's going out and he's speaking to people who watch CTV, CBC,
He
Global
he spoke
News. Like,
to Mulrooney today. I don't know who Mulrooney's with.
Ben Mulrooney is on a syndicated radio show that no young people are listening to. I hate
yeah,
to say it. Like, and I'm not
and
saying Ben Mulrooney is a bad dude. I think I might end up in a podcast with him. We're talking about getting together for a thing, and that's not, again, no problem with that. But it's like you're not reaching outside of the bubble of the audience of the people that are already listening to you. Yes, you're great. You're speaking to all these people at these rallies, but they're already signed up for the Conservative Party. They're coming to your rally. They want to shake your hand. You've already won their votes.
no,
Like,
but
if this is an election of reaching across the aisle or reaching people who've never voted before, this isn't the right way to do it.
he needs to reach. I saw the math. Somebody did the math today. Like, he needs to get about 15% extra young people coming out to vote than what voted in 2021. It's not a huge number. It's got to be Jenny Byrne or somebody, like one of the ladies who's advising him is giving him bad advice. Like,
you're absolutely right on this.
She's old school, even though she's young. They're afraid. I mean, they're afraid. I don't know what they're afraid of. They're afraid of they're afraid of the sound clips. They don't control it, right? That's what they don't like. They don't like coming to talk to you or me or Pleb or anybody else because they don't control it. And
get used to it. This
yeah.
is the new age. And here's the thing. If you can survive a 2-3 hour podcast and not have some crazy gaffe where you're saying you can't even answer the question because you don't know what the heck you're talking about, that's what people are looking for. Like, if that was the gaffe, then that's the gaffe, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think Pierre would have a problem sitting through a long podcast and expressing his ideas, because he's fleshed out his ideas over the course of decades. He's not really flopped on anything except this recent stuff with Donald Trump. Like, when it comes to the core principles of what he's been espousing for decades, it's been the same. People need to see that. I think a young audience, if they saw that, they would be into the ideas that he's bringing forward instead of these sound bites, instead of these slogans, instead of the things that you hear at these meetings.
I agree, and I don't know how we can help them change it. But like I said, look at while you were gone, look at the shit that Danielle Smith took for going on talking to Ben Shapiro this week, right? She went and talked to Ben, and people are just blah blah blah. Like, yeah, I mean, Pierre should come on your show. Pierre should go visit Sean Newman. I mean, Max Bernier was on Sean Newman today.
You've got contacts with Danielle. Why don't you get Danielle to come on our show and chat with us?
I've been trying that for so long. I'll call her directly. I got to bypass her staff.
Bypass everything. Get her to come on a show, because here's the deal. Like, it doesn't matter what she does and what she says. People are gonna criticize her on the left. And the thing is, get out there and speak to more people so people can have access to the long, nuanced version of what you said, and all that clip stuff will fall apart, and it's just not even worthwhile. If they have to dig to find it, they're not going to do it. If the more you go on these shows and the more you express your ideas, the better off you are. And I'm thoroughly, like, convinced on that idea.
But yeah, and at the same time, they are all turning inwards, right? I mean, Pierre is not allowing the journalists on the plane with him. Neither's Carney. Like, they're scared shitless. They have bad advisors, and they don't understand that if you hide completely from us, if Pierre was completely transparent with us and met you and I regularly and whatever, and he had a little bit of a faux pas, we wouldn't care if he made a blunder. But now if he says something stupid, the whole world's just going to snap on it, take a screenshot, and then throw it back at him.
Well, but not only that, Marty, it gets worse. Yeah. So, like, he won't go on these podcasts and there's a lot of people who don't know his point of view. Like, if he came on our podcast, people would learn his point of view, but that would be supplemental to somebody else who learns of who he is by going on some of these other podcasts with young audiences that are watching. But if he doesn't do it, what does he do? He lends opportunity for people like Maxime Bernier to go on an American podcast and tell people who don't know what Pierre Poilievre thinks what he thinks and misrepresent it. Because I watched the video with Max on PWD podcast, and a lot of what he said was just complete trash. Like it
Yep.
wasn't true to what Pierre says or espouses to. It was just false. But that doesn't matter if Pierre's not going out there and correcting the record. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, you know, we'll have to, I mean, we're in the second week of this election. Like I said, they are just dancing around each other, being super cautious right now. There's nobody taking any kind of risk whatsoever on any side. So it's it's weird. It's a weird election. What else went on? Oh, well, actually, what else did you miss? You and I missed a golden opportunity. Speaking of podcasting and stuff like that, we were going to do a special segment with Rachel Gilmore. We were gonna fact check Rachel Gilmore every week. Well,
Marty,
guess what, folks?
there was an entire career opportunity for us.
Yeah,
not let alone Rachel Gilmore. I did a video about that earlier today, and I just thought it was funny because like her. So for people who don't know, she was invited onto CTV. Rachel Gilmore is this journalist woman in Ottawa who's famous for running doxing campaigns against people she disagrees with politically, going after people using claiming the victim card while going after guys like James Topp. And she got fired from Global News for writing an article that insinuated that he was a white supremacist, like all this stuff.
She's one big giant libel suit waiting to happen, or slander. I mean, she's like,
massive.
I wouldn't want her on my staff. Like, yeah, exactly.
And was it Mario Neufeld or not Mario Neufeld? Mario, I forget his last name. Another creator, and she published where his business was and published it so her followers would go after him, a conservative, and try to destroy his business. Now she's complaining that she's had a career opportunity ruined for her because the CTV, sorry, rather, got rid of her. They learned of how much vitriol there is for her, and this is where I have to come to her aid. If they hired her on for a job and they can't take what do they call it, the bandwidth of bad press, stick with your employees, bite the bullet, keep them on. I mean, it just shows how weak-willed they are, that they're just going to go with the whims of how people think instead of having any conviction.
Yeah, but I mean, I think they saw what was happening on. Maybe they didn't see exactly what was happening online, but somebody, I don't think somebody at CTV just went, whoa, this is a bad idea. Like it you hope still that CTV, that organizations are run by fairly competent people. All it takes is one senior manager at CTV to go, whoa, what are you guys doing? Right? Like one senior manager who's on the ball would have said, you guys hired who? Like Rachel Gilmore? Come on, stop it. Right. So then like that's what I'm hoping happened. I mean, what Rachel says, I really don't give a shit. She's blaming Brian Lilly, and she's blaming, the left doesn't, the right doesn't like me. Well, we don't like you. We're fundamentally an idiot. So yeah. Anyways, it's our loss, right? It's our loss because it would have been fun to fact check her. It's our loss. It would have been fun to fact check.
And I want to set the record straight. Like Marty and I both last week when we talked about this, we were excited about her appearance on CTV. We were not in we didn't advocate or insinuate that she be fired in any way.
Nope.
We thought it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous that they hired her, but we thought we would have a lot of fun with it and make a whole segment out of it. So to set the record straight, we were not part of any mobs to have her fired. We were actually part of a group of people that were going to enjoy her
Yeah.
employ at the
But
CTV.
now that this whole thing is over, now I'm back on the mob. I'm not. I never want her fired or anything like that. But I'm on the mob that will mock her and make fun of her. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
she's a ridiculous person who's
Yes.
like, she was in tears today or whatever. Like, I'm just trying to help Canadians and I just want to do good. It's like, well, then there's a secret to doing that. Just do good work. Like, if you want to help Canadians, do good work and you'll succeed. But
She was behind the claims that there was an arson attempt by the Freedom Convoy on an Ottawa apartment building. It was a hoax that was perpetrated to say that the truckers broke into an apartment building, tried to light the building on fire, and then chain up the doorways.
right,
And
I remember that one.
she was instrumental in spreading that false narrative that the police, when they investigated, made sure that the media knew was false. And Mendocino was, who is also a member of Carney's
He's his chief of staff.
Yeah,
He's his chief of staff.
he was instrumental in spreading that misinformation as well. So talk about fact checker. Wow, that was a piece of work. So
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
that's
well.
the story of Rachel Gilmore.
Hey,
Hopefully it's not
Rachel,
the
you can
end
still
of that
come on this
story.
show next week if you want. We'll have you. We'll do a
Yeah,
segment with
Rachel.
Rachel. Yeah.
I'll definitely. You know what? So she blocks me. I don't know if she blocks you.
She's blocked
But
me. Yeah.
anybody who clip this from this video and send this to her, that we're not, obviously we didn't want her to be fired. We wanted to in fact have fun with her segment. But we would invite her on the show to talk about this if she's willing to do it. No, there's no gotcha. There's no whatever. It's not a trap. It's really like, come on and speak with us.
And unfortunately, we don't pay either.
No, it's not a paying gig. But if you want to get the record straight, come
Yeah.
on. The other part of the story, and I just want to I'll land my plane on it with this, is that she aired the private conversation that she had. I think that's kind of unethical. I didn't really appreciate that. Usually when it comes to the journalistic code of ethics, because she does claim to be a journalist, that sits outside of that barrier. She's also making herself the story in that, and that sits outside of the realm of journalistic standards. So just want to.
Well, that was one of the funny clips that came out this week. Not a clip, an old post of hers, an old tweet. She said, if I was something along the lines of like, if I didn't exhibit pure journalistic integrity, I would probably get fired. And then she got fired. So by definition, she probably didn't. Yeah, that tweet right there.
Too good. It's too good. It's just poetic justice, at the end of the day. It's funny.
Self-fulfilling prophecy or poetic justice. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, another one bites the dust. Sorry, not really sorry, but if you want to come on the show, I'd love for her to come on the show. I like speaking with people I disagree.
Yeah, she'll rebound. Yeah, what else happened while you were gone? Price of gasoline went down 14 cents. Oh no,
Price of
not for you
gasoline
guys.
has gone up.
You
in
guys
Texas.
you have a separate carbon tax in BC. You're not included in the rollback. Here in Alberta, Carney rolled back the carbon tax. That was the other funny thing all week long, man. Like yesterday, all these liberals literally like applauding Mark Carney for removing the carbon tax. Like that's pure Stockholm syndrome. You know what I mean? Like you're applauding you're applauding the party who gave you this carbon tax, the same party who a mere year ago was saying that if we didn't have a carbon tax, we were going to burn the planet. Remember that video of Mark Holland in the House of Commons, like, way to go, kids, we're going to sit in the car for 10 hours, but meanwhile the planet's burning. Like,
oh man, oh that's brutal. So I want to ask you this, Marty. In Alberta, are farmers now going to be buying unmarked diesel?
We always did. What do you mean?
Well, you have marked diesel for industrial purposes because you save on taxes, but the
Yes.
taxes won't be saved on industrial purposes. So marked diesel is going to have carbon taxes on it.
Yes, it still does.
Yeah.
So,
So at
oh,
what
that's
point isn't that an interesting thing? The marked diesel is coming closer to the price of unmarked diesel, and it's going to become more and more expensive because this carbon tax is going to keep going up on the industrial side under Mark Carney. The plan is to get to 117 a ton, wasn't it?
yeah. I'm hiding the number, but I have a UFA card, which is the United Farmers of Alberta. So I'll go to the UFA tomorrow and I'll go see what the price of, we call it clear diesel, or purple diesel is dyed diesel without tax, and then clear diesel. But I'll go check. Actually, good point. Maybe.
Yeah. So for people who
Yeah.
don't know what this means, right? So farmers typically they don't have to pay road taxes and a bunch of other taxes that people who drive on the roads would have to pay. So in order for them to save money on this stuff, what they decided to do is put dye in the diesel that doesn't have the tax, and it's clear diesel that goes on the road that pays the tax. And if
Yep.
you're caught with dye in your filters on your diesel, or they'll
On
dip
your
your
car,
tank.
let's say your
Yeah,
car or
in
something
your
like that.
car or your
Yeah.
whatever, they could dip your tank, and if they find dye in there, you can get a serious fine for not paying your road taxes.
Yep.
That's how everybody in agriculture knows about this across the country. But if the carbon tax on consumer fuel is going to go away, but not on industrial fuel, it brings the prices of industrial fuel and road fuel closer together. And as the carbon tax increases more and more, I wonder at some point if the industrial diesel will actually be more expensive than the road diesel. That's
Yeah, to be determined. Now, did you see friend of the channel? You've met Chris from the Whistle Stop Cafe. Yeah, you
yes.
met him at the We Unify conference.
Yeah.
Chris yesterday made a statement. So yesterday it was April 1st. The carbon tax came off. Ooh, we saved 14 cents.
Mhm.
He actually he runs the Whistle Stop Cafe, which is a restaurant and a gas station. He took off all taxes off his gasoline yesterday, and he was selling it for like 80 cents a liter just to make a statement. Now it cost him, apparently it cost him out of pocket $6,000, but he made a pretty important
Wow.
statement yesterday, which is like, check this out. So yeah, we're taxed to death on gasoline. But and yeah, like I said, people were applauding Carney for removing the tax that his party had put on. It's completely bizarre what the mental gymnastics that people will do to support the Liberals. Like, ooh, the
Yeah.
Liberals are going to get us out of this housing crisis. No, they won't, folks. They got us here. Ooh, they got rid of the carbon tax. Yeah, that they put. Ooh, they're lowering the tax. Yeah, like it's every promise so far by the Carney Liberals is literally reversing a bad policy without acknowledging that the policy was bad.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
incidentally, here in Texas, where I'm at right now. And by the way, I wanna just throw this other plug out there. At this point, if you're watching this in the after the fact, this is actually a live show, and after the live show, we do a Q&A. So stick around for that if you're live. And if you haven't done this before and you've only watched the pre-recorded, come hang out in the live. It happens every Wednesday, starting at 6:30 Pacific. That's 9:30 Eastern. We're doing that. But right now I'm in Texas as we're recording this, and fuel prices have just jumped over the past couple of days. And I'm not really sure why. It might be at the news that there might be a conflict in the Middle East again with the Iran thing. And I haven't been able to do enough research on it to draw an opinion on that. But just letting you know, so we got here, and regular gasoline was about $2.60 a gallon, and it just jumped over $3 a gallon.
That's still pretty cheap, right?
Oh,
That
it's way cheaper
yeah,
than Canada, let me
I'm
tell
trying to
you.
do the math in my head, even with the exchange rate. But what do you do while you're down there? Did you pick up a bunch of American cash, or you just use your cards and then
I
they
just use my
take
card
just
everywhere I
use your
go.
cards? Yeah, yeah.
That's it. And I've been
And
doing a lot of fun stuff and eating a lot of great
now
food.
I'm dating myself a little bit, but the last time I was down in the States, they didn't use a lot of debit. There were still a lot of places that use cash.
Mhm.
Is cash still rule down there? Have you noticed anything like that? Or you're
It
using your
doesn't
card and it's working fine?
I use my card. It works fine everywhere. So it,
Yeah.
it seems like, yeah, no, the old cash is king thing still exists. Like if you want to use cash, nobody's like denying cash. But yeah, no, it
And
really is a
and,
card
and
accepted every
I
single.
saw that you went through some lead downrange. That looked pretty awesome.
We just got back from shooting more lead down range before the live stream. Not gonna lie, Marty shooting the AK-47 full auto is I'm feeling it in the shoulder now. It
Yeah, yeah.
feels it almost feels like as bad as when I got in that car wreck and he got it from the pre-tensioner on the other shoulder. But yeah, having lots of fun shooting lots of guns, shooting automatic guns, pistols, semi-automatics, everything. So much fun with that, and eating really good barbecue. And the absolute hospitality down here is just unbelievable. And I'll tell you what, it seems almost everywhere you go, people just seem to enjoy what they do. They enjoy what they do for a living. They make the best of everything. People are genuinely, generally just happy all over the place.
I yeah,
That's the
I
opinion I'm
used to
getting.
find that out all the time. I used to be yeah, like you know, you go down to the restaurant and the waiter's happy, the staff that are serving you are happy, the
Mhm.
doorman at the hotel who greets you's happy. Like yeah,
The security
they
guard at the golf
yeah.
driving range, just like he's fist bumping everybody that comes in. Like
Anybody
it's
tell
so
you
great.
you were underdressed? I mean, I used to find that funny too. Like I'd come out there and I'd be wearing t-shirts, and you know, when I'd visit Texas and say in December, and then the doorman would have a hat on his head and a big jacket, and he'd be like freezing, and meanwhile, you and I are walking around in our t-shirts and shorts. But um, yeah,
It's been warm, but it's not extraordinarily like hot or anything. It's just warm,
right on.
which is nice.
Last thing, just before we get to the end of the show, tomorrow is an important day in Ottawa. Chris and Tamara flew out to or drove across. Like, they're crazy. They drive across, but it's their sentencing day, or no, not sentencing. It's their
It's the verdict hearing.
verdict hearing. More is the verdict apparently. So hopefully it doesn't get delayed one more time.
Yeah, no
So
kidding. And
yeah,
hopefully
yeah.
it's a good outcome. We're all hoping for that. This is
Well,
the
that
longest mischief
mischief trial.
case in Canadian history.
I'm not holding out a lot of hope. You saw what happened to Detective Bruce last week as well in Ottawa. She was found.
Oh, yes, that's right.
She was found. Hers was not a criminal trial. It was sort of like a police trial or whatever, a hearing or a disciplinary hearing. But she was found in breach of police protocol because she investigated things without permission. Oh my God! What a that's one thing
Police should have that ability to do that. They should have the ability to have a hunch and investigate something.
I
That's
totally
that's
100% agree. Like that's what I
that's
paid
what
him to do.
detectives do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it's all bureaucratic. She needed permission to go investigate what she was investigating. So, yeah, that's the only other story I have on my list. But I didn't have time to prep it with a video or anything like that. But I just wanted to throw out really stupid stories out there. There's a town in Quebec right now, a little town in Quebec just east of Montreal, that it passed a bylaw and they're fining citizens $200 for not having a tree on their front lawn.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
So
You have to have a tree on your front lawn?
yeah, the mayor decided that the town needs more shade. So
Well, just tell them like, dude, you're shady enough as it is, man. That's
yeah,
fine.
so everybody's got to
You're a
plant the
Quebec
tree.
mayor that needs more shade. Give me a
Yeah.
break.
Yeah, you got to plant the tree. If you don't have a tree, you're getting fined $200. Christ, what a crazy world we live in.
People in Canada just don't like liberty, do they? Like, they're not everybody, but like politicians in Canada definitely
Yep.
don't like liberty. If I don't want a
Nope.
tree in my yard, I don't want a tree in my yard. It's none of your damn business.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just struggle with this one. I really struggle with this one. But we'll leave that one for the comments in the comment section down below. Don't leave now. We're about to do the rest of the show. This is the live portion. So we're going to get into the Q&A. If you're not watching this live, you should tune in live at 6:30 Pacific time. 9:30 Eastern every Wednesday when we record this. If you're here live, don't leave now because we're going to get into the live portion of it. Marty, where can people find you?
Marty Up North on Twitter, and I do have a plea to people: come find some of my tweets, and just like here, hit that like button. I have been so shadow banned right now. It's crazy how shadow banned I have been on Twitter. And we talked
Really?
about this last week. I finally busted out of it. The way I bust out of it, like people go, "What are you doing?" Because I tweet, like I go tweet like every, instead of tweeting every 30 minutes, I tweet every 15 minutes. I must have tweeted 100 times today to finally bust out of it. And
Were you
I'm
just saying
busting
like
out of it.
Mark Carney's my guy? And all that stuff?
No, I'm literally not even saying Mark Carney. Like I got to start saying like, I got to say funnier things. I was purposely following Americans and commenting on American politics and doing something. I got to bust out of that because
Wow.
the algorithms are nasty and they reward you, but it sucks as a journalist. Like as a journalist, like what we're doing, if I'm fact checking Carney, the computer looks at that, goes, well, Marty likes Carney, so then all the computer does is feed me
More Carney.
I'm like, no, I don't want more Carney. I just want to fact check him, but after that, I want to go back to. I literally had to ask today, like, hey, what happened to so and so and so and so and so and so, because I couldn't even find them.
No way.
Yeah. So I know you have some strong opinions on how algorithms work, but I was like, this week I was literally like, I couldn't find people. So
I honestly can't disagree with what you're saying right now on the algorithm thing. If you're tweeting about particular things, you're gonna get more of that stuff. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.